Hello, everyone. Glad to see you back here at Silver Tears Tarot. And of course, a warm welcome to anyone who is joining us for the first time. Today, we're looking back into the situation with your person. We're going to see how your union is doing. So, we'll be looking at it a bit beneath the surface in this one to see how your energetic relationship is looking and feeling. And of course, we're going to get a read on those surface energies too, but this is also going to get in a couple of layers into what we can't usually see. So, if you're new to the channel, I have a playlist called the Soulmate series that's been kind of heating up. If you haven't seen some of the recent ones, you may want to take a look back at them just to kind of understand some of the patterns, and to understand if this is a channel that you might want to subscribe to. So, of course, these are general readings. They may not resonate with everybody, but the fact that it's a pick a pile, it really allows you to pick the best reading for you. You can watch more than one if you feel drawn to more than one. And if you enjoy the videos, please do be sure to like and share and subscribe so that we'll be able to stick together. And again, if you get a reading that resonates, it may be that you belong here as part of this collective. So maybe just check out some of the recent messages to see if there's more there for you to discover. So time to pick out your pile. They're all going to be rough crystals today. So you can choose pile 1 with the prehnite crystal, pile 2 with the amethyst, and pile 3 with the fluorite. So as I always say, don't overthink it. Just breathe. Let yourself drift toward one of the piles. You can always watch multiple piles if you feel drawn to more than one. Pause the video if you have to. So if you choose pile 1, it's going to be right up. For pile 2 or 3, you can get the linked timestamps down below the video. So go down there, hit show more. You'll be able to see links to the piles and then as well to the extendeds. So go ahead and pick your pile and let's get started. Okay, so getting started with pile 1. We are taking a look at the overall state of your energetic union. So this is the one with the prehnite crystal, and this is one of my favorites. It's complex. You sit there and you can just look at it for a long time. I'm going to be reading for you from with the Tarot of the Spirit. So if you've been watching this channel lately, you'll have seen a lot of this deck. And then I'm going to clarify with the Radiant Tarot. So these decks work well together. We're going to look here, starting with the current energy of the union between the two of you. So it's asking the question very directly, what is the energy of the union between you? But it is also going to give us a little bit different of a perspective because it's just that top layer of energy. Of course, when we get into clarify, we'll kind of see the next level. But here we have the Three of Fire in the reverse. So we have something that it could be a stagnant energy, but it's an energy that is not moving forward right now. So it's almost the energy of an impasse and just kind of something that is at a standstill. When we clarify, we'll understand why it's at a standstill, if there's any oomph behind it, or if it's just kind of something that we'll take a look at what that means, because I feel like it could be a couple of different things. We're going to take a look now to see kind of how your person is feeling. So it's really how they're feeling about it in the physical realm, though, because this reading is around more the spiritual connection between the two of you. But let's also get a feel for how your person is feeling about it in the physical 3D sort of realm. So how your person is feeling about it. And so we've got the Eight of Wind. A lot of anxiety and overthinking that comes in here. So I get the sense that your person is actually trying to think about it less often if possible, but they're having a tough time, just kind of can't get it out of their mind. And there is this sense here that there is, this is the Eight of Wind, so it's like the Eight of Swords, and you find this with a lot of overthinking, a lot of almost verging on anxiety sort of energy. And that's kind of how your person feels about things in the 3D because they've caught on to the connection that's happening in the 5D. And right now, like I said, it's at a little bit of an impasse. So there may be something that's blocking it there. We'll take a look. We're going to ask the question of what sticks out the most in this situation. So, again, remember the overall reading is about the state of your energetic union, and we want to know what sticks out the most. Wow. Okay. So, the moon, the mystery, the quiet, it's that lack of communication. So, this is what sticks out the most. It might also be one of the things that is kind of impacting things for you almost the most, because it's having less of the communication to go on, less information gives more of that sense of mystery. And that's definitely what I'm feeling is the thing that sticks out the most. It's like it's how much you don't know. Um, let's look here to see another important energy that is impacting the situation. And that's the way I like to ask that, because I don't want to ask what's crossing you, because that implies that the thing that's going to be impacting the situation is decidedly negative. I think sometimes we get in there and we discover it's not actually negative. And then other times it depends on your perspective as to how you're going to see it. So we're going to take this card and we're going to take this. So if you're new to my channel, I have kind of these rules about the way I pick my cards. It's usually just the top card, unless I feel drawn to take more than one. And this is one of those times. So we have the Sister of Wind and the Father of Earth in reverse. The Sister of Wind is equivalent to like the Page of Swords. It's a very transformational energy, but it's also the type that is willing to jump in and communicate, pull things apart, understand what it is that they're looking at, things like that. The Father of Earth in reverse, though, suggests that this is there's a sense of not really feeling like there's a like you're deserving, or and this is what's happening on both sides. It's really interesting because a lot of times when I take these views and when I look at a perspective of a relationship, I will often see more of your person or more of you. This seems to be pretty well balanced in general. So there is still an air of this. Not necessarily that the communication wants to happen. I feel like the communication does want to happen, but it may not be happening. It be partially because of the level of transformation. I keep pointing to these little butterflies down here when I talk about the transformation, and it's because this communication continues to bring a transformational sort of feel. But if you don't feel like you're worthy of it, you don't feel like you're ready for this and that you deserve it, it could be very difficult to take on. So there's this push and pull sort of feeling that's happening in that, I want to say 5D, but in that spiritual realm. And I like to use the different terms because that way people will understand what I'm talking about. But within the spiritual realm is a fairly broad term that definitely fits here. So it's about what's happening with you. When you go in to meditate, if you're able to communicate or if you're able to commune with them, that's the level upon which I'm seeing it. So in the 3D, in the physical realm, I'm seeing a lot of overthinking on their part. This whole situation is just kind of marked with mystery, secrets, things where enough information hasn't really come out. But one of the things that's most important about this is that there's this push and pull. You know, there's a feeling you may have seen the in and out behavior in the physical realm from your person, and it has a lot to do with the fact that they both want to come in, but yet don't feel like they can. And on your side, there's something very similar going on. There's a lot of movement to go forward, but there is also something in here saying, I'm kind of not quite ready for this. There's something about this that makes me nervous. So let's take a look at kind of those hidden energies. I mean, the whole thing, this whole reading is going a little bit deeper and feels a little bit like hidden energies because we're looking so much in the spiritual realm. But let's go ahead and think from that perspective. What is it that you may not be able to see from where you're standing right now? Okay, and again, I've got the directive to take a couple of cards here. It's going to be these two. We've got the 10 of Wind and the 6 of Wind. So the 6 of Wind, and these are both air, with it being wind, it's air energy. We've got the 6 of Wind, which represents not just healing, but also moving from a state of being pretty frenetic and pretty concerned about things to everything getting a little bit calmer and there being a sense of clarity. In fact, it even says clarity here on the card. The 10 of Wind is more about the pain of an ending, but what I'm feeling here is that there's this feeling of a pain of, and it's not necessarily an ending here. That's typically what it is, but what I'm feeling is pain in general, and something that is has caused some sort of communication ending with you because of pain that has happened in the past. It hasn't quite been figured out yet. This feels like it is very much on your person's side, but it's challenging to try and figure out how best to interpret it because I'm feeling it coming through a couple different ways. Basically, though, what is happening is they have felt triggered on some level that they can't quite describe. And that's part of what caused you see the communication kind of going away. There's still a desire for communication, but there's also this sense that they've pulled back. But there's in the background there's this sense of them saying, "Okay, I understand, they're overthinking now. I understand that I've been triggered. I understand that I'm not feeling right. I kind of have to pull back from this situation." Unfortunately, though, they aren't actually taking a next step. There's the feeling of pulling back, but it's almost like they just pull back, and it's a bow that has been pulled. So there's a lot of energy waiting to let go, but not a lot of letting go. This is interesting. Let's see kind of what's the energy that you guys are moving towards. So this is going to be the energy against which your free will would be acting, or I guess the environment in which. I don't want to say it's going to be acting against energy necessarily, because that implies not working with your environment, and I don't want to imply that. Except that we see a little bit of that with the high priestess in reverse. So the high priestess in reverse, the high priestess can be about a couple of things. So it can be about mystery and secrets as well, but in this case that's not so much what I'm feeling. It's more that connection with the intuition, connection with the higher power. There is a feeling that that is lacking here a little bit as things are going forward. So this is an area where it is a shared feeling, so it's something that you may want to include in your search as well. How can you be more connected with your higher self, your higher power? And there are multiple ways to do this. My personal favorite way is through meditation, which you'll hear that if you're on this channel for any length of time. But essentially, here, what I'm seeing is that the two of you are moving into a situation where your person has been very withdrawn. They've withdrawn because on some level they've figured out they're being triggered and they don't really feel like they can handle it, which is leading us to some of that current energy of the union, where there's this sense of stagnation or kind of staying away. And it has a lot to do with the fact that things kind of are, it's avoiding and coming toward at the same time. I don't, and it's not the same thing as approach avoidance, but it's both approaching and avoiding, though I will say that. And there's also this sense that the communication, which once was something that was a little bit better, is no longer as functional as it was. So we're going to go in and start to clarify. I am going to clarify with the Radiant Tarot. And we'll start here with the Three of Fire that's in reverse, just to get a couple of cards to clarify on that one. This one is interesting because, like I was saying when I first put it down, it can be a couple of different things here. So we have the Eight of Cups in the upright that comes out to clarify that one. And then we also have the Knight of Wands. Wow. Okay, so this is interesting. There's another one of those conflicting sort of feelings here. So I feel like this is more of an impasse than it is a stagnant sort of energy. There's energy that's pushing and pulling, like we see over here, and that's really why it feels like it's not moving. It isn't stagnant because there is no movement or activity. It is not moving because it's receiving equal and opposite pull. So there's a sense of wanting to walk away. There is also a sense of wanting to move toward in a very dramatic and a very passionate sort of way. And so this is the energy between you. So it's kind of happening on both sides. So if you felt any indication, or I felt like you wanted to just walk away from this because it was creating too much trouble for you, while at the same time wanting to go and bring back the communication and make things a little bit stronger, those are the same sorts of feelings that your person has also been having. And it's part of what's been keeping you in, I guess, stalemate is kind of the word that I want to use. It's a little bit of a stalemate, but it's like a stalemate of emotions on both parts, not necessarily between the two of you. If either one of you were to break the stalemate, it would make a significant impact, but it would have to be done a certain way. So if you were to come to your person and say, let's communicate, it might have a very different impact than them coming to you and saying that, because of the history of the give and take and kind of the dynamics of the relationship. So let's take a look at this Eight of Wands, because what I'm feeling here is that overthinking, and relevant to what I was just saying, your person has probably been the one to hold back some in this relationship with regard to this communication. And they may even have been the person who initiated the lesser communication, but it doesn't mean they aren't thinking about it. So let's see, we've got the Page of Swords. Yeah, that's the same one that's upright over here, but this is them not talking. The Page of Swords is not wanting to make that communication, and a disappointment. Yeah, they're disappointed. There is a sense here that it's like they don't have the strength to get past it. But it's not just strength. It feels like they don't have the strength, and that's how it's coming through for them. But if you look at it, it's a lot of fear that strength is usually pushing against anyway, and they are having trouble being courageous enough to see this for what it is, because it's a lot easier to just fail and then be disappointed in yourself, which they might jokingly say that makes it easier because the expectations aren't as high, so you don't get as upset. But in reality, they are actually upset. There is actually a lot more thought going on around this than they are leading you to believe. Let's take a look at this Moon card now, in the upright. And so this is the secrets. This is the thing that sticks out the most in the situation. We have the Devil coming out in the reverse. This is excellent. The Devil coming out in the reverse means that there's some kind of control that was being exerted on you previously, that isn't currently. So, it could be a lot of different things. It could be obsessive thoughts, addiction, any kind of person that's being controlling, or a variety of things that could mean. But the fact that it's in the reverse means it's not holding that sway anymore. You're also not necessarily getting blown into your next direction. So the Wheel of Fortune often feels like a wind blowing to me. So when it's in the upright, the wind is blowing at your back. It's the universe kind of pushing you along, as the Wheel of Change turns, but it's pushing you along. Here, when it's in the reverse, the Wheel of Change is not necessarily turning for you. So things are feeling, once again, little bit stagnant, little bit like an impasse, or things are just not moving forward. And really what it is, it's just quietude. This is that, when I first laid this down, I was saying this is quiet, this is mystery, this is things not coming out. You're continuing to see that here, but I also see that you're both getting a little bit better with it, as far as how you're reacting to the quiet, because at first it was almost this sense of panic in the air between the two of you, whereas now I'm feeling less of that panic and more of that clarity and calmness that's in that hidden energy. Unfortunately, with the rest of the hidden energy being this feeling of, there's this pain that comes out when they think about you, or when they think about the relationship more than when they think about you. They don't necessarily think of the pain directly of whatever it is that's causing the trigger, or what the feeling that's being triggered. So the experience with you is the triggering event, but what's being triggered is a very old pain and their reaction to it. They're not connecting that with you exactly, but they are connecting it with the relationship, which is why you see them being as withdrawn as they probably are. So let's take a look here at this is the other important energy impacting the situation. And when we looked at it, what it really felt like was a push and pull. It's the reason there's not a lot of movement here, which we see echoed with these cards: the walk away, run toward, here's the move toward, here's the move away. Let's go ahead and get a clarity on this. And I'm going to treat these like a single card. So I'm going to clarify with two cards, because a lot of times when I have a couple of cards come out like that in one of these, I just dumped all the cards. When I have them come out in these types of positions, a lot of times what happens is the cards will get together and communicate as one. So I'll just clarify them as one. If I can hold on to my cards today, I'm not always this terrible with them. Okay, that's a single card. Every day's a little bit different from a shuffling perspective, and I just kind of roll with it. Some days you shuffle for a long time. Some days you start shuffling and stuff just starts falling out. We had a reading like that not too long ago. So, trying to keep this on camera because I know we've got a bunch of cards that we're going to try and get in here. But basically, remember, this is that feeling that it's the coming and going. It's the I'm drawn to you, but I don't feel like I can handle this, so I'm pushing away. It feels like it's too good to be true. There's that Ten of Cups again that has come up in several of our readings here recently. And that Ten of Cups is that feeling of like that social media post that you see it and you don't really believe that anybody's life could be that great. And this is kind of that sense that they feel when they feel like they're sorry, when they're with you, they kind of feel like it's all too good to be true. They can't really believe that, and that's part of what makes them want to run away. On the other hand, though, they have done some work within themselves that has allowed them to build some self trust. It's part of what's creating this overthinking here, and in the reason that they just haven't run and the trail goes completely cold. That this is their self trust that is causing them to not be able to let this go, to keep thinking about it, to have that sense of overthinking. And even though they're quelling it with their fears over here, the fact that they have something to quell is actually kind of significant in this situation. With their history that I can feel over here and the progress that they've made that I feel here and here, I feel the clarity coming out. I also feel, like I said, there's some self trust that has really grown with them here in recent times. That's allowing them to do a better job, but it's still such a struggle for them. They have farther to go. So let's take a look at the hidden energies here. And so we have that clarity, that Six of Wind, that Ten of Wind, that, hey, I know I've been triggered. And they do know that's the overthinking. They know they've been triggered. They're thinking of some old pain, or that some old pain has come up. Now, it is not super clear to me that they understand the nature of that pain, but it's like an abandonment sort of feeling. And the issue is that they are afraid to let it happen. They're afraid to even get into the situation because they're afraid that something is going to happen. On the other hand, they're wiser than this. So they've come farther along than all that for them to be able to just say, nope, sorry, I'm too scared to let this go forward. They're in a place where they can at least overthink it, which we talk about overthinking being a bad thing all the time. But honestly, it's not that bad if we have the capacity to at least weigh some of the different options. That is a good part of it. But it's really doing so to the point where this person is having a lot of anxiety. They're conscious enough to have a lot of anxiety and to know they have a lot to learn. Okay, sorry for the quick edit. I heard the unmistakable sound of a puppy behind me that needed to make it outside, and I had to execute quickly. However, totally remember where I was. So, remembering that we were clarifying this sense here that there's been some enough of the smoke has cleared that this person has realized the link between their triggering and this relationship, but they haven't quite figured out all the rest of it. And so they're working to kind of learn it. But it also creates a lot of anxiety. And remember, I was saying this is the card of the student. This is something they understand they need to do some learning. But looking into the energy where you're headed next, that's that sense of not necessarily being connected to the higher power and to the higher self. So let's see, I don't want to use this deck. I had picked it up to get it out of the way, and now I'm trying to clarify with it. And it's interesting because I always think, well, I can't get the High Priestess out of that if I go to clarify. And it's, of course, because it's not the right deck. The Lovers has come out, and the Empress. So this is powerful energy. Looking at the High Priestess, so there's this sense that there is kind of a disconnect between the self and the higher self. And it's being presented with this choice in love that has to do with this amazing bond and relationship between you and your person. The connection on the spiritual level is a very deep one, but it's a terrifying one. And so, what we are seeing here is that you are presenting as being ready for that connection where your person is really kind of running away from it. There is still a sense that on both of your sides, there's this feeling of, I'm coming toward it, but I'm also afraid I'm not quite worthy of it. So even though you're coming across as being ready for this, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're fearless and that all of your problems have been solved and, there aren't any other questions. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to describe because there is there is definitely a sense that there's a disconnect on both sides around the between the self and the higher self, but it's a much stronger disconnect on your person's side, partially because they've worked themselves into a little bit of an emotional corner, and partially because they didn't know as well as you how to connect in the first place. So we've got kind of this current energy between the two of you of this push and pull. There's not a lot of movement because there's the push and pull going on. So you're going to be able to feel, and that's hopefully this helps you understand a little bit of what you're feeling. There's a little bit of this push and pull in the environment around both of you, but especially on your person's side. A lot of, yes, I trust myself. I want to move toward this. Or, you know what, this feels like it's too good to be true and it's probably not good enough, or I'm probably not good enough for it anyway. Generates a lot of overthinking on your person's part. I feel like you're ready to kind of move through this, and these cards would suggest that as well. As the energy that you guys are moving toward and going into, that's a really good, healthy place, except that we need to get this High Priestess card turned right side up and that connection between the higher self and the self. Because this is kind of the tricky bit here. It's the sticking point. It's the part that you can't really see, but your person can't really see it either. I think you might have a better perspective on it, or it might be easier for you to get this into your mind because you've already kind of come through this space where your person is navigating it for the first time, maybe, and it feels a little bit tougher, or each time you navigate it, until it becomes evident to you what's going on. It still just feels like being triggered by a lot of pain and not quite knowing what to do about it, knowing that you have some things to learn. And there may be a fair amount of anxiety and overthinking involved. And your person's response to it is really to turn away. It's to kind of disconnect a little bit. But by the same token, there is a lot of positivity here because on both your sides, I'm seeing you're being released from some of those things that need to change, but you're not necessarily been being pushed along by this change, and so it may feel like things are moving very slowly. May feel like, initially when I picked this up, I was like, well, it's not really stagnation, but there's a little stagnation to it. It's a perception of stagnation, and it makes a lot of sense when you think of it from this perspective, when you're not getting any information, even though there is healing going on here, which we can kind of see evidence of throughout. It still feels like it's moving so slowly that it's very challenging. And meanwhile, your person is just kind of frustrated with themselves for allowing things to get to this point. They know that it's really difficult to reverse, and they, without that connection to the higher self, can't quite make it to that vulnerable place where they'd be able to say, yes, I recognize and accept this bond and I'm ready for it. I'm ready to move into it. So I think we're going to go ahead and stop here with the regular reading. We're going to go to the next level of energy, I think, in the extended. So this was already a little beneath the surface, so we'll be going, a little bit deeper into that. One of the things that we want to understand is we see a little bit about how your person is feeling about the relationship and about you, but I want to dig into it a little bit more deeply, because part of it is they're starting to recognize what the bond actually is between the two of you. And whereas it's terrifying, it's also, I want to see how far along they are in recognizing that and how it's impacting their opinions of you, their thoughts of you, thoughts of the relationship. So really kind of understanding a little bit more about how they feel there. And then this is something that I want to check into. This is like a beautiful, beautiful energy. And the only thing that mars it is the fact that this High Priestess card is in the reverse. Part of it is, I said that one of the meanings for the High Priestess is secrets coming out. And there are indeed secrets coming out. But without that connection to the higher self, it's going to be tougher to interpret these secrets and to interpret the messages. I shouldn't call them secrets. They may feel secret at this time, and well-kept secrets at that. But there's going to be more to it. So I'm curious to understand, like, how do things progress from here? Because this feels like it's a moment in time. So let's take a look at that as we go into the extended. If this one resonated with you, I would just ask you to please like and share and subscribe so that we can stick together. If you go down below this video, you'll find the link for the extended reading. And if you hit show more, and you should be able to get to my Vimeo page, and then it should take it from there. But we're going to take a look, like I said, into how your person is feeling a little bit deeper, what's happening with this future situation a little bit more, and see what else that we can see as we kind of dig down deeper into the energy. So I'll see you there, or I will see you in another reading. And now for pile two. So pile two was the one with the really awesome amethyst. So I'm going to be reading for you with the black tarot, and it's hard to see, but it makes the amethyst really stand out. So, yep, going to read with the Black Tarot, and then I'm going to use the Mystic Mondays to clarify. And so we're looking at the energetic state of your soulmate union, and we want to see, we're going to start with the current energy of the union itself. So the current energy between the two of you, we have the Three of Wands that has come out, and it's come out in the upright. So this is a situation where you have something that's been set into motion. The two of you have already kind of been, we know that this is entirely possible. The two of you have been flowing together on an energetic level, maybe for some time, even though we don't always see evidence of that in the physical realm, in the 3D right now. So let's maybe take a look at that and kind of see how your person is feeling about things in the physical realm, in the 3D realm. And there's, a lot of possibilities there, especially when you've got things that have been building here in the spiritual side. It can create some awkwardness, some discomfort, all kinds of things. So we actually have a couple of cards that wanted to come out for that. I'm just going to take the top card of each one. It's usually what I do. And let's take a look and see what came out here. So we've got the Five of Cups and the Eight of Cups. This is okay. So your person is having a tough time with things and just kind of getting a bearing on what they ought to be doing next. So there's this feeling of regret in that they're able to look at what has gone wrong maybe, but they're not able to weigh in what has also gone right. And so they find themselves trying to move away, trying to walk away, or to break away energetically. And so we're seeing that show up in a lot of forms when I talk with you guys. Some of your people are not in communication at all and just have completely ghosted, or have disappeared. Some have not stopped communicating entirely, but the communication has become very sparse, or it's just become very uninspired, and so that's what I'm seeing here. It's a result of them feeling a need to disconnect because it's something that's really intense that's happening on the spiritual level, and that doesn't always mean easy going in the physical realm. So let's check to see what sticks out the most here. Well, the mystery. Okay, so here we are again. This has come out right here in this position in another reading. So basically, it's the mystery that sticks out. It's the fact that there's not as much communication. It is, you see this person moving away from a 3D perspective and having a tough time with feelings of regret and some shame. There's shame mixed in there as well. And yet things continue to move on the spiritual side. There's just a lot of secrecy and a lot of kind of hiding behind the fact that there isn't communication here in the 3D. The word hiding comes out kind of strongly when I see this energy. So this is really not allowing for things to be illuminated. But in the cases where they are, it's almost hiding away. What I'd like to look at next here is another important energy that is impacting the situation. And I phrase it like that because I don't necessarily want to say what's crossing you in the situation. Crossing implies that something can be a lot of times when you hear that, folks are implying something that would be perceived as negative to you, to something that's unpleasant. And that's not always the case. So here we have the Seven of Wands that has come out. And here I'll put this up where you can see it maybe a little bit better. So the Seven of Wands is a card of knowing that you're on top. So maybe you have to fight for something, but also knowing that that there's a success to be had. And what I feel here is there's a strong bond. There is a lot of an attempt to hide and to kind of get out from under the obvious spiritual responsibility or that feeling of responsibility, and yet knowing it's going to come back around, knowing that the two of you will end up being whole together. So the Seven of Wands is that feeling of, like I said, wanting to being willing to fight for it, but also being just confident in knowing that things are going to end up in an abundant way. So that's actually an interesting thing, because that's not what I would get out of how your person is thinking about it and feeling about it in the 3D and the physical realm. I see here that there's this feeling that that the two of you are going to come back together. You both know it on some level, but I think this freaks them out a little bit. So let's look here now at the hidden energies. And so this is going to be, of course, the things that you can't really see. And again, we have two cards that wanted to come out for that. That's been happening a little bit more here lately, but most of the time I pull it and it's just whatever that top card is. That's the only one that I feel compelled to pull out. So here we have the Ten of Cups in reverse and the Queen of Spheres in reverse. And this is somebody being thrown off their game. It has a lot to do with why you're seeing this behavior up here, where it seems like there's this regret, there's this feeling of shame under the surface, this hiding, this running away. This person is not walking away, they are running away, and it is really, that's kind of the sense that we get. They are shying from the situation because they don't feel like they're prepared to handle it, because they feel like they're ill-equipped. And part of the issue that they're having here is things seem like they're too good to be true. And so they understand that there's a sense for discern, or there's a need for discernment when things come across as feeling too good to be true. But there's also there's such thing as making a mistake and just making the assumption that it's not going to happen for you. It's this can't happen here, and that happens very strongly in this. You might not be able to see it because your person may generally come across as a fairly confident person, and they may be a fairly confident person in their daily life and in a lot of the experiences that they have. But there is something that is happening here that is just it puts them off their game. It makes them feel like it can't happen here. Things can't happen here. And yet, on some level, both of you know um, that things are going to happen here. So this is an interesting set of energy that's going on here. It's like it's going to go forward, and energetically things are moving forward. But there's a lot of this in the 3D. Feeling like things can't move forward, your person really running away. And so, one of the things that we noticed about this channel is that a lot of the people that are coming to the collective for this channel are people who would be categorized as chasers in the runner and chaser dynamic, but a lot of you are not really chasing. And so, with your person running away like this, it's a missed opportunity on their part. But there's also this sense they ran away because they misinterpreted what they were seeing and feeling here. And there is still this feeling that they'll be back. But right now, there's a lot of hiding. So let's see what happens. What's the energy that the two of you, your free will be facing? So it's kind of like the energy of what you're moving toward. Let's see what that looks like. The energy of what you're moving toward. So things, you can't you can't always tell what's going to happen with somebody with their free will, but you can kind of say, hold on, here's the situation in which they will be exercising that free will. So just grabbing this top card, and then I'm going to set these aside because it's almost time for us to start to clarify. But we have the Strength card in reverse. And so The strength card is, if it's in reverse, it's not winning out against fears. That's generally what you're seeing here with the strength card. When you see it in reverse like that, it is somebody falling to their fears. And so there's a lot of that here. There's a lot of fear. There's this person is running from their fears, a lot of regret, shame, that shameful feeling. Something has gone wrong. They don't feel like they measured up. They don't feel like they measure up in general. And that's mostly what has caused them to use their discernment to say, nope, this is actually too good to be true, can't be real, and they've taken off. I think this is hidden even from them, even from their perspective. And so we see a lot of that hiding, lack of communication, and the energy that you're moving toward. It looks like it still has a lot of fear in it. So let's go ahead and clarify, and we're going to clarify with the Mystic Mondays deck. So what the Black Tarot lacks in color, the Mystic Mondays deck will more than make up for. We're going to start here with the Three of Wands. Okay, so we've got the Sun in reverse. We were just talking about a missed opportunity, and the Sun in reverse sometimes gives me the sense of a missed opportunity like that. We had a couple that wanted to come out here, so we're going to look at them and read them all together. So let's pull these up all together. So remember, this was the current energy that is flowing between the two of you. You've got this energetic sense of something having been created that is now, it's just going to be a matter of continuing on kind of from there. There is still this sense of missed opportunity, a feeling that things did not work out the way that they maybe were supposed to, or the way that the two of you expected them to. You maybe thought as you were feeling forward, oh, hey, this is really going to be kind of exciting, but instead things didn't work out that way. And that's what we see over here on the other cards that came out. So there's a truth that has yet to come out. There is something that needs to change but hasn't. So in order for this transformation to occur, the one that you guys have set the groundwork for, this transformation over here needs to happen. There's something here that needs to end so that a new something can be reborn. And so this is a death card, but it implies rebirth when you see the death card. It's not usually just the death of something. It's rarely the death of a person. Never really had that come out in a reading. If I've seen the death of a person, it came out with different cards and totally different way. But the death card, so with it being in reverse like this, there's something that's holding you back, and it has to do with this truth that isn't coming out or won't come out or for some reason can't come out. So that's that current energy that's happening. It's this not really feeling there's a lot of movement, but definitely feeling like the stage has been set a little bit. So the next thing we asked about was how your person was feeling, and we saw that they were feeling a little shameful, regretful, running away. There's this sense of them running away, but let's see if we can get any more of an idea about how they're feeling about this union. So we've got the Ace of Wands. This one hit them like, I mean, just really hit them hard. So it was an immense, amazing new beginning that basically, is this a single card? I'll take it. It was an amazing, amazing feeling when the two of you came together. This passionate new beginning is one that it feels like the sun came out for them. And I'm not just saying that because we've got like these cards that are going from black and white to color as we're clarifying, but also that's just kind of how it felt for them. It felt like things were going from black and white to color. You caused them to graduate in their life in such a way that they couldn't ignore that. But they also feel this strong sense of, having been here before. There is this feeling of the souls being close together and having been close together, and that is terrifying them somewhat. Doesn't even necessarily fit with the way that they usually look at things. They're having a tough time with it. It's part of the reason that you see them running away, because they really did, that soul recognition that occurred when the two of you initially came together it's jarring for them. They can't unsee it, but it's also what fed this new beginning that was happening, and that excitement energy when the two of you were together. This is like raw, passionate, exciting sort of new beginning. Let's take a look at this moon. So remember, and move these over just a little bit. Remember, the moon is, it's about that mystery and that lack of communication. It's the thing that sticks out the most in the situation. That's the question we were asking. So let's see all of them. Okay, so let's take a look here. We have the moon, which shows again the thing that was sticking out the most in the situation is the lack of clarity, the lack of communication, the lack of anything clear, explaining what's happening. We also have the Queen of Wands here. The Queen of Wands in the reverse, it's it's kind of interesting because they had this amazing drive and passion toward you, but this is them quelling it. This is them absolutely kind of snuffing it out, putting the capper on it. And yet there's this feeling like they could come back later. They have essentially sabotaged, if possible, they've done what they could to sabotage the situation so that you would feel like you would go away from it. And so there is, I saw, I was watching a show with one of my kids not too long ago. And it's this show, there are these middle schoolers, and this girl is chasing this boy essentially. And the boy says, he's obviously not saying this out loud, but he's thinking, what can I do to make you forget about me? And that's what's happening here. This person is like hiding and hoping that you'll forget about them. Not because this passion wasn't real, but because it has so scared them that they've shut that passion down somewhat in a lot of ways. And they've gotten in the way of this partnership all by themselves. And it's not in some sort of angry sort of, it may have manifested that way, but it's not that they wanted to be destructive. It's that they have so much fear, they feel like they can't go through with it. And yet, the reason they were able to enact, I don't want to call it a plan, but their actions here, the way they were able to do it, is because they felt like there was this. I'm going to be able to come back. This is a soul recognition. The thing that isn't willing to change. Once I change it, I'll just be able to come back. There's kind of that feeling there. But it's interesting because you've got this roiling that's happened over here on the 5D side, on the spiritual side, and yet it's like crickets in the 3D. So let's take a look at this Seven of Wands because it has that same feeling as the Seven of Wands here. It's the I know I'll be successful sort of feeling. And this was another important energy that was impacting the situation. So we've got the Eight of Wands that has come out here to go alongside it. And we also have the King of Cups. So that's working a little bit against one another. We've got the Eight of Wands, which is full of energy moving quickly. So we've got a lot of passionate, confident, I know I can do this. And here's the energy of motion. On the other hand, we've got, hold on, I can't look like I'm losing control of my emotions. This is a very emotionally controlled person who likes to have that perception of emotional control. Feeling like you can fight for something is not necessarily looking like you have a lot of emotional control. It's that desire for emotional control the desire for emotional control comes from that fear. It's like part of the overall defense mechanism that is playing out over here where they've done the self-sabotage. But they, in the background, the only reason they've been able to do that is because they do truly believe they'll be able to come back. That passion that happened there can't be ignored. Neither can this soul recognition that happened here, but they just don't feel ready to let go of the control enough to allow all of this to happen and to allow for people to see how they feel on some level that is threatening to them. So maybe let's look at the Queen of Spheres in reverse and the Ten of Cups in reverse. When we looked at this was the hidden energy, and it was where they had utilized their hard-earned discernment, but things came out a little bit twisted because they didn't feel like they were worthy of the situation. So that lack of self-worth has caused them to do this sour grapes sort of thing where they feel like it's maybe not worth it anyway, right? And so let's look to see what comes out. Ooh, we've got the Ace of Pentacles and the Queen of Swords both in reverse. And I'm going to hold these up so that you can kind of see everything together. So they've come to you and been very passionate and very exciting, and then it seems like they made a hard left and went into hiding and sudden self-sabotage mode. And we know now that it's partially because they feel like they've got to make sure they're in control of things. And here, in an effort to maintain control, but more importantly, an effort to protect themselves, they have said, on a very deep level that they're probably not even aware of, I'm not really ready for this, because they feel ready for lots of things. They feel confident about a lot of things. For some reason, they don't feel confident enough here. And so they're walking away from something. We've got this missed opportunity over here, this sense of, but I know I can come back. I know that I'm not making the change that needs to be made. And yet saying they don't want it anyway, that it's too good to be true. And so here we have the Queen of Swords in reverse. The problem is with this whole them discerning that it's too good to be true is that they know on some level that that vulnerability was real and that this needs to be revisited. They can't walk away from it or stop truly thinking about it. But they're unwilling to open this door right now because they feel like they lack something. They lack something in what they can't stay visible. They keep hiding from you and running away. So let's take a look then at this strength card and just understand what's around that. That's the energy that we saw. Okay. Okay. Of the fear winning out. And part of the reason that we see the fear winning out is because your person is feeling overloaded, but they're feeling overloaded to a point where they actually start to give up on the situation. They actually start to give up. So this is the strength card in reverse is the fear winning out. That's what you're being strong against. A lot of times, if you've been on this channel before, you'll have heard me say that the strength card doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's a response to something, and it is usually pushing back on some kind of fear. So with it being here in the reverse like that, we see that the fear it's also on the opposite side, and the strength and the fear constantly battling it out to see if it's going to be courageous actions that result. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just don't have it. Especially if you feel like you've been carrying this load for too long, this emotional load, which honestly, this person has been carrying an emotional load. The reason that they are having the response that you see up here is because of that emotional load that they are carrying. It's the reason that you're seeing them hide over here has a lot to do with why all of a sudden you see that they are feeling like they don't have the self-worth to move forward, whereas it seems like they actually do in a lot of other situations. This is hitting them in a special way that is causing them to take what is, I called it their hard-won discernment, and it is. It is also discernment that is being impacted by that self-worth. So they're not allowing a door to open. They don't even really realize that they're the ones that have shut this off, because somewhere in here they told themselves they didn't want this anyway, even though there's this feeling that, you kind of did. There was this vulnerability was not, it's real. The problem with vulnerability, though, is that it really does contradict this whole wanting things to be clean and emotionally stable. That doesn't work very well with vulnerability under some circumstances, and this is part of what your person is having a hard time changing. So they're having a hard time making an adjustment to being able to see the truth, be vulnerable, go back to this state. They're missing the opportunity. They're having a hard time being able to go back to this state where they originally were, where they had this amazing time with you. But this whole thing has taken an emotional toll on both of you. And one of the things that I'm seeing here is that this is like the feeling of burnout. This is that feeling of I can't really make this work anymore, but it isn't that they aren't trying. So there's also this sense with the King of Wands. The King of Wands in reverse can be a very controlling card. Sometimes it's arrogance. I don't get the sense of arrogance so much here. I get the sense that they are like they're still continuing to try to control the situation. And in this at this point, it's taking the form of hiding. It's being really quiet, hiding emotions in any case. But it's just really it's tough to hold on anymore, and they're kind of losing the grip and it's sliding away. That's what I feel like here. So they're lacking the strength, but it's not necessarily taking them the direction that they want to go. They're going to have to give up, but that's the movement, that's the direction that they're moving toward, is that sense of giving up on all of this hiding. They're spending a lot of energy on that. So this is an interesting story that has emerged here with pile two. We're going to go ahead and go into the extended, but one of the things that I want to look at here is I want to look a little bit more deeply into how this person has been feeling. So we pulled the cards here to understand how they were feeling about things. You know, how do they think they're feeling? Well, this is conscious feeling, conscious thought. They can't ignore the soul recognition, so that's an interesting piece to come out when we're thinking about, well, how are they thinking and feeling right now. You know, they also recognize just how passionate and exciting this situation was. However, they also recognize, no, I feel no small amount of shame here, as well as I just feel this need to run. It's almost like the kid on the basement steps that they turn the light off and they run up the stairs and feel like something's chasing them. That's almost like the impetus they have to get out of Dodge. I mean, they hide, and that's like it's a defense mechanism for them, but it's one that they've developed over time. So we can definitely see that. I want to look into this a little bit more deeply there for you, though, and understand how else this person has felt about you, because I see that they had to talk themselves into the self-sabotaging energy over here. And so that was, I think, kind of interesting. But they also, another question that I might want to ask is kind of about what's really unfolding here with them. You know, it's not necessarily that picture of them hitting rock bottom, but it is certainly them having to relinquish some of their control of the situation in order for things to shake out a little bit. So I want to look a little bit into how this goes, how this maybe turns out, what happens next. So this is the place that you're heading, but what happens as you move forward? How does that end up looking? And then, you know, definitely, like I said, how tell me more about how they're feeling about you, and we'll take a look at what it's going to take to move things forward. So that's what we're going to take a look at the in the extended. You should be able to scroll down and click on the links for the extended, and go to my Vimeo page where it will take it from there. If this resonated with you, I would just ask you to please like and share and subscribe so that we can stick together. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you over in the extended video or in another video down the road. And now moving on to pile three. Pile three has the white or the clear fluorite. So this is a neat color of the fluorite, and especially because it lets the light pass through it just a little bit. I'll be reading for you with the Alice in Wonderland deck. So Alice in Wonderland, and then I'm going to clarify with the Classic Tarot, which looks a lot like the Rider-Waite. So we're going to look at the state of your energetic union, and we're starting with the current energy of the union. And so this is going to be that energy between the two of you. As much as that kind of tossed over there, we still want that card. So this is, so it's the Ten of Spears, which is similar to the Ten of Swords. And the fact that it's coming out in the reverse is kind of a positive thing, because essentially the Ten of Swords, Ten of Spears, that it's air energy. It is a painful, difficult ending. And when you see it in the reverse like that, you see there's sort of a sense of rebounding from that difficult, painful ending. And so, if that's in the current energy between the two of you, I would say that's probably a pretty good thing. But we'll see a little bit more here when we go to clarify. Um, First, we're going to take a look to see how your person is feeling about it. And the way they're feeling about it is going to be very much in the 3D, in the physical realm. So, what we're looking at here is kind of that 5D energy, what's happening between the two of you. And we see that pain starting to kind of melt away. But then over here in the 3D, just to see how your person is feeling about it. I am wanting to throw the cards around today. Let's see here. We have the Chariot, and just taking that top card. So the Chariot is that energy of how your person is feeling about it. It feels to me when I feel this card, it feels to me like this person is very aware of the ways that this relationship has motivated them. So this is a motivated sort of energy, even though what you might be feeling from them seems a little bit more closed off. They are aware of motivation having taken place, although I'm not super sure that that's what you're seeing from them. That's how they're feeling about it. So let's check to see what sticks out the most here. And it's really, what sticks out the most about your situation and the energetic state of it. We've got some change. This feels relatively new to me. It feels like it doesn't specifically say change, as the card doesn't necessarily say that, but I do feel it. Just like I can feel that this person is not necessarily behaving as if they are motivated in the physical realm, but they're definitely feeling it. They're feeling like they have been, and that's just kind of the impact that you've had on them. So, looking to see what sticks out the most here, we have the Moon card. So, this is interesting. Super interesting, because if you happen to watch any of the other piles, the Moon card has come out in this position each and every time. And what it has meant, what it has felt like each and every time, has been incredibly similar. So basically, what we're seeing here is the thing that sticks out the most here is the mystery. It is the lack of communication. It's the fact that things are not necessarily showing clearly. That mystery is the fact that things kind of feel like they're hiding. This feels also not just like the truth is hiding. It feels a little like your person is hiding too. And so that has not been true necessarily with all three of the piles, but I do get the sense there with this one. So that's interesting. The fact that the Moon would come out in the position of what sticks out the most in all of them is very telling. So one of the things that I mentioned early on, I think I mentioned it at the beginning of this pick a pile, was that sometimes you have people that are on a different place in the timeline, but it's the same time, it's the same story, it's at different times in the timeline. And I can't guarantee that's what's going to happen here, because we're not really that far into it yet, but I can tell you one of the commonalities is going to be this. So that's really interesting. It's that hidden element, that information that's not coming out and that's not showing, that sticks out the most here. Um, so let's look at another important energy impacting the situation. And I ask it this way because I want to make sure that I'm not asking what's crossing the situation. I don't want to put anything positive or negative as far as a spin on this. And as we see that, as I ask this question, sometimes what comes out is very positive and sometimes it's not so great, but it's impacting the situation. It's energy that we want to take into consideration, that is important. And so here we have the Temptation card. Okay, and so this is kind of like the Devil card, equivalent of the Devil card in this deck, and I'll pick it up so you can see it a little bit. The Temptation card it is exactly what it sounds like, but really it's about something kind of pulling you away. There's this sense of, the temptation that is implicit in this relationship. There is something to be tempted away from. So that's a pretty strong energy, that there's something to be tempted away from. And I get the feeling that your person has been tempted away from it. Possibly you have been too. I get the feeling that there is something to be tempted away from on both sides. But it may not be the same thing on both sides. So it could be, hey, both of you are married and this is a difficult thing for you to think about. But your person has definitely already seen this as something that moves them, causes them to be motivated, may also cause them to be motivated away from something that's happening in their life. You may be tempting them away from something that's happening in their life. There's a lot of mystery around it right now, but as the smoke is starting to clear and the pain is starting to melt away, the clarity may be starting to come out a little bit. So, speaking of clarities, let's take a look at the hidden energy here. This is the part that Spirit wants you to know, but you can't necessarily see from where you're standing. So, this could be anything. We see all kinds of interesting things come out in this. And sometimes it's hidden from you, sometimes it's hidden from both of you. If that's just a single card, then I'm willing to take it a lot of times. Everybody, all the readers have their own sort of rules about how you pick the cards out. You know, when you shuffle them, all these different things happen. So what comes out, and how do you interpret which ones to pick? So for me, it's a lot of times just the top one, that'll have that glow to it. But sometimes I'll dig one right out of the middle and know, hey, I've got to have this too. So in that hidden energy, we've got the one of hedgehogs, and so this is in that hidden energy that Spirit wants you to see it, but it's not something that you can necessarily see from where you're standing. So there is something that's changing, opening up, becoming more material. So that's the message within this card. It's something that you already have a lot of energetic movement and happenings going on in the 5D, in that spiritual realm, in the physical realm. There's some awareness, but there's also something, there's more moving to the physical realm for the folks who chose pile three. And knowing that there's been this level of motivation here for your person and that temptation is also in the picture, that can be a little bit challenging. The fact that a door is actually opening there. So I can't wait to get in and just kind of clarify this, because clarifying to see this pain that's starting to melt away and yet this temptation that's starting to really rise up and be a big part of the picture, because this is an important energy that's impacting the situation. But so is this. This is how your person is feeling. So they're feeling like you move them. There is something here. I can't wait to clarify to kind of see what that is. But this door is opening and moving toward that physical realm, moving toward the 3D, but there's still just so much mystery. Let's see about the energy that you're moving toward. So this is the energy that you guys are moving toward, and your energy is your free will is going to be here with this situation. So I can't predict what your free will is going to be. That's not something that we can reasonably do, but we can say, here's the energy, here's the backdrop, here's what you're working with as you're moving through your free will. And I'm going to go ahead and set this deck down, because the next thing we'll do is clarify. But we have the Five of Flowers, which has come out. So this is like the Five of Wands. It's a struggling sort of energy. So the energy that you're moving toward is a struggling, uncomfortable, awkward, feels a little bit out of balance, like things are pulling in multiple directions. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So before we get too worked up about that, let's go ahead and clarify, just kind of see what's going on. And so again, this one is called the Classic Tarot. Looks a lot like the Rider-Waite. We're going to start here with the Ten of Spears in reverse. We have the Temperance card that has flipped out relatively immediately. And then we have the Death card in reverse. So let's take a look at that. When I take a look at this, I see that there is pain that's sort of melting away, and with that comes a bit of balance. This is hard-earned balance. That's one of the things about temperance. You get tempered. It is there's a balance that happens as a result of the experience of temperance, but it's not an easy process to get there. It's something that you really have to earn and work through. You work through it though, by moving through the change inherent in the Death card. So if you look at it, it's the Fool's journey. It starts with the Fool card, which is the 0 in the major arcana of the tarot deck, and there are 22 cards in that major arcana, and so that's before you get to the aces and the 2 and the 3 and so on. The major arcana, there are 22 cards. The last one is the World. begins with the Fool. Well, card 13 is the Death card, and card 14 is the Temperance card. So, as you move through the Death card process, so there's something that has to end here, something else has to rise in its place, and that helps you move into that place of temperance. But what we see here is the Death card is in reverse. And so here is a change that's not happening. Something isn't ending that needs to in order to help bring about this temperance. So it's happening, but there's still something in the way that's causing it not quite to come to fruition just yet. There's a snag in that energy that you guys are experiencing right now. And remember, this is the energy that's happening between you at this time. So let's take a look now at this Chariot card. And this was how your person was feeling about you, but it's conscious. It's how they're feeling about you in the physical realm. So this person, we know that there's a lot of movement inherent in the Chariot. We have the Seven of Pentacles. You're someone to invest in, and you're somebody that they have wanted to invest in. We can definitely see that and feel that, but there's something about it that they feel like they can't do. I saw the Lovers card in there in reverse, and it was kind of an honorable mention, but didn't want to be laid down in here. The implication, though, was that there is something about love that isn't really a choice that you can easily make right now, or something that's not moving in your favor as far as a choice, or something that not moving in your favor isn't the right way to say it. It's more that it's becoming less of a choice, or at least not currently something that you can move toward. And that is part of what we're seeing here. So something has to break in order for your person to move toward you. It has to break in the physical realm, in the 3D. So it lends more credence to a concept like your person being married. There's this sense of temptation, and there's also this feeling, this strong feeling they have invested in you already. So, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, you're worth investing in. They want to invest in you. But what I'm feeling here is that they already have. There's already been investment in you, despite the fact that there's something, again, standing in the way, making it very difficult for the two of you to move forward. And so we see it in both of these pieces here. So we've got this current energy where things are beginning to feel a little bit better. You're moving toward this balance. Pain is starting to melt away. But there's this sticking point. There's this thing that hasn't changed and doesn't seem to want to budge. That creates a bit of a problem for you. Then over here, when we look at their own feelings, we see that you have motivated them. You move them forward. They have invested in you. They feel that you are worthy of investment. But there is something here, once again, that makes it not quite right, makes it not work. There is the strong element for some of you of a marriage that is in the way, at least one marriage. There could be, this is the strongest I've ever felt that both folks might be married. So, that's interesting. That did not show up in all the piles. But this did. So let's go ahead and clarify that. This is the part that sticks out the most for basically everybody. It's the fact that we don't have communication. We don't have clarity across the situation. So we've got the Tower card that's coming out here. So we don't have clarity, but it's not a comfortable situation. There's definitely a tumultuous sort of challenging emotion that comes out with that just something's moving with it right now, actually. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting with this. There's this mystery, but the Tower card tells me that there's emotion moving with it right now. Yup. And a new perspective that is coming out. So there's a lot of mystery here, and it is the thing that sticks out the most as you look at the situation, because that's where it feels a little bit like an emotional betrayal for there to be this much of a bond, this much of an emotional investment, and yet to have so little access, to have such an inability to see the rest of what's going on. It's provocative, it's tempting, you can't get to it. That's kind of the feeling that's there, but there's a new perspective about this. I'm curious to understand what's happening with this new perspective. I wonder if maybe that is something that we will look into here in the extended, but let's see kind of, what else comes out here first. The Tower card, though, this is really interesting. The Tower card has this clear and present, things are moving right now sort of feeling around it, which is interesting because we also see this Ten of Spears had that feeling like this is a relatively new thing. This movement that's between the two of you feels relatively new. There's been a lot of movement, a lot of change in the Soulmate group, and we've been capturing some of that in the Soulmate series. So one of the things that you might want to do is go back and take a look at some of the other, and we talked about it, but some of the other videos that are in that Soulmate series to find out if there are more messages in there that you would want to get. But this is one of the changes. We're seeing the change toward moving toward that balance and yet knowing there's still a hitch in the giddy up. Can't quite get there. So here, though, again, we see change that's happening right now. You still can't see it well enough, but it's a tumultuous event. It's a tumultuous happening. Whatever is kind of going on there, feels like a huge change. It feels like a huge change, and it even looks like one from the perspective, and it's a change on both sides. So this is a really fascinating sort of experience because this energy is moving relatively quickly. You could probably both feel it, but it still has, we've got these twin issues that are kind of holding us back. But then what is going on here with this temptation card? I am really interested to go ahead and clarify this one and understand what's happening. Um, okay, so we have our cards. We're going to take the Page of Wands and the Seven of Cups. So taking a look at that, when you have a lot of different options and you have a lot of curiosity and a lot of passion, it can be an interesting combination. It's like a bunch of extra energy running around. You have to figure out the best way to use it. So this is a card of options. The Seven of Cups is a card of options that are in front of you. It can be a little bit confusing. It can be tough to know, tough to understand which options to choose. And a lot of times it's even tough to learn about them enough within the amount of time that you have before opportunities start to go away. And so you'll get a little bit of a frantic energy around it, a little bit of a frustrating energy around it. And we definitely have that. It's part of, there's something that needs to change, and we see that again. It's like I'm just going to use this as an example, but it's like there's a marriage that needs to end before the two of you would be able to come together. We see a lot of curiosity on their part and like a desire to potentially make that happen. So the Page of Wands is youthful, and is definitely interested in moving passionately toward things, but also this is like a minor arcana fool sort of energy almost. It is the energy of wanting to reach out and do something new and exciting, and they're just a very curious sort of energy. This is that curious page. So again, it's like the energy of springtime mixed with, I don't know, something audacity. It's like springtime mixed with audacity coming out here. And that is an important energy impacting the situation. This is definitely not an energy that came out very strongly in any of the other piles. I will say that there's a lot of temptation involved here. You could really fall off a tightrope, or they could, with this energy. And this curiosity is enough to almost blow you off of it. And then these additional options that just kind of, things could really change as a result of this, especially when you look into it and you say, but there's already been an emotional investment here. There's already been a lot of movement, and currently there is movement, but there is still something in the way that hasn't changed, isn't changing, because you wouldn't have temptation if it wasn't for that, as it turns out. Without these things being here that create kind of that obstacle, there's nothing to be tempted to go away from or to go around. So that's part of the draw for this person, and I feel like I have to say that it's like it's part of the draw. It's part of what they like about the situation. That's interesting. We'll have to kind of maybe get into it. I think in the extended, there's a lot going on here about how they feel about the situation, about how they're interpreting it, and we may want to dig into that a little bit more deeply. But first, let's go ahead and clarify this one of hedgehogs, because it's like these cards that go down from the first deck are that surface layer of energy, and then we get in a little bit deeper as we go in to clarify. And then when we go to the extended, we go even deeper and we go kind of, we ask fewer questions and we dig into it a little bit more. So let's take a look at the one of hedgehogs. Okay, we've got the chariot in reverse that's already come out. And then what came out and swung around? All right. Ace of Pentacles. So that's interesting because the one of hedgehogs is earth energy. It is also like the Ace of Pentacles, but we have the door opening, things coming closer in the 3D. We also see this slowing of the impetus, or essentially what it feels like, the image that comes into my mind here is like wagon wheels. Okay, the chariot it's being pulled by two sphinxes here. And it is, a lot of times it's being pulled by a couple of horses, couple of somethings, and a lot of times they're not necessarily going in the same direction. These guys, so the wheel of the chariot that it's like it sat in the mud for long enough that it dried there, and now they can't pull it out. That's kind of what I'm feeling like. The impetus has stopped towards something for long enough that somebody isn't quite sure how to get it started. That feels like your energy on some level. So, something to think about. It might be a little bit deep because if you think about that, this is associated with energy that they know, a hidden spirit knows is hidden from you. So, there's a door that's opening, that's coming in the 3D, but there's also this sense of it having a real hard time opening, and I think that is relevant to decisions that need to be made here. We saw a choice earlier that felt like it needed to be made, but we also saw the indication that your person didn't feel like they had much of a choice in their situation. So that is a super fascinating hidden energy there, because we see the conflict in there and the things are moving forward, but they're not. There's a lot kind of pushing against it as well as pulling it forward. And that is an energy that we've seen fair amount of as we've gone through this. So let's look now at the Five of Flowers. And the Five of Flowers is that struggly, sort of difficult energy. But it's that energy that you guys are going to be you're going to be working into. So you've got the moon, secrets coming out. You've got the moon in reverse. And let's see what else wants to come out for you here. We've got the Queen of Wands in reverse. So secrets coming out, and this time the Queen of Wands is really giving me that vibe of masks coming off. So this is interesting. Something's going down. But we kind of knew that already with the Tower card being over here. The Tower card being over here tells us in no uncertain terms that something is going down. And then the Hanged Man says there's already a different perspective to be had here about some of these secrets. So one of the things that wants to come to mind for me here is the realization that I've had around this collective as I've been talking to you, learning more about you, talking with more of you. We have a runner-chaser dynamic in a lot of cases where we have a chaser who has enough self-worth not to spend very much time chasing. But some of it is like, that's not something that you just automatically, boom, I have self-worth now. It's something that happens gradually. And I get the sense that this new perspective, at least the new perspective on your part, has a lot to do with here's how I plan to handle not receiving clarity or information from my person. And it can be your tower. It could be as simple as you're standing there one day doing something unrelated in the kitchen and you realize, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. It just doesn't feel right. It's not angry. It's not explosive. It's just a realization. It could be as simple as that. So sometimes the tower, when it hits you, it is definitely very it's a definite moment. It's a very specific moment when you realize things are going to be tumultuously different. But it doesn't have to be a tumultuous experience, and I kind of get the sense that that's almost what's happening here with this new perspective. But then when we get down here, we were like, okay, there's a lot of struggling in this energy, but we've got secrets that are coming out, and we've got masks that are coming off. So this is a fantastic sort of energy to be moving into, despite the fact that it seems super tough because of the struggling energy. But when we think about it, this is things unraveling. And in order for things to straighten up and fly right for you, in order for these doors to open, something does have to unravel here. This moon needs to be turned upside down. These masks need to come off. There's been investment. Pain is falling away in the spiritual realm. The balance is starting to grow, but there is still something here that causes such a significant wrinkle. It is simply not an easy thing to deal with or to think about. So there's this temptation that really plays into things here and creates a cloud. I think as we go into the extended, what we're going to do, what I want to understand for you and what I want to ask about for you a little bit more is kind of how they feel about you and what they're registering in the 3D about this relationship. Kind of, it's a how they feel about you, but we see here they're kind of conscious of this level of feelings. They know something's wrong. They know they've invested. They know that you've moved them. They also are aware on some level of this temptation, but there's a really hard stop here. So let's understand a little bit more of kind of how they're feeling. I also, as I was looking across this, I want to look at these together. So there's this hidden energy of this stop, go, things won't move, but yet they've got to advance forward. We've also got this struggle, which kind of represents that feeling that we're having over here, but we also see things starting to kind of unfold. I don't see, I wanted to see vulnerability in this Queen of Wands, but that's not what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing the masks coming off, but not necessarily vulnerability, and those are not always the same thing. So let's look a little bit more into that and just kind of understand more about the energy that you look like you're moving toward, as well as, like I said, how they're feeling about it, how they're registering all this, because we can see that on the 5D side, their pain is falling away, but there's still, like I said, there's that little catch. So let's see what happens there. If this resonated for you, please do like and share and subscribe, because that will help us. That'll help us stick together and help us be able to find each other. But if you'd like to go to the extended video, which is where I'm going next, we're going to look a little bit more deeply into this. You should be able to find the link for it just below this video. You'll see the extended for each of the piles. Click on it and it'll take you right to my Vimeo page, and that should go from there. But yeah, so we're going to go over to the extended now. I hope to see you there. If not, then I will see you again in a future reading.